So this is the speed strut kit. I already pulled it out of the box, and you'll get a package that looks like this, and all of this red speed struts that are all packaged together. So in the packing slip, you'll see these. These are the two tools that will be used to hold things together. These are little floating nuts that slip over these pieces that go on either side of the fan that hold the ceiling panels up. 1/4-inch stainless steel rivets and 3/16 stainless steel rivets. So if all of that is in your kit, then you should have everything. I have a 1/4-inch drill with a 1/4-inch bit on it, a 3/16 bit, 3/16 rivet gun, and a 1/4-inch rivet gun. Honestly, this is the same rivet gun, you just change the head out, and you can set the different size of rivets in it. So you don't actually need two of everything, but we have it here for expediting the process. Cut the wrapper off. Be careful not to scrape your knife and cut through the powder coating on the struts. You're going to have multiple pieces, and you're going to want to mount the ceiling track to a couple of these pieces. So as we unwrap this here, you'll notice we have this piece. This is the cross bracer that goes in between the two tracks that are going lengthwise of your van. You're going to have 4 of these longer pieces of track, and they're labeled. Right here you can see it says 2L, so we know that this is the left. If you're facing forward, it's the driver's side. And the reason why there's a left and a right, or a driver and a passenger side of this, is because if it's a 2, it's on the aft side of the vehicle. If it's a 1, it's on the forward side of the vehicle. And the back wall, above the doors is rounded. So the back edge of these are slanted to fit the contour of that back wall. We're going to use our stainless steel bolts to mount the track to these. So we're going to stack the 2s in the back and the 1s in the front, and we'll go ahead and pull our ceiling tracks and stack them on top of them. So that's the that's 2L, so this one would be 2R for the other side of the vehicle. And there are also these guys. You'll see 5 of these all together. 4 of them are shaped the same, with the nice rounded edge here. And then you'll have 1 that is shaped with the flat edges. This one goes in the front, and the very forward rib. And you'll see a little later how this is all going to work together. But that is the difference between the 2 different types. There's also a little difference in the angle that these are bent at, so that's why we made the shapes a little different. And you'll see on these, this is where these little floating nuts will slip onto them. So when you unwrap everything, again, your packing slip, you'll see that you'll have 4 of these, 1 of the other ones in front. This is your cross piece, and then your 4 main speed struts. The main speed struts, between each of these brakes where the ribs are, they are able to float back and forth, and that's because each van, there's actually about a 3/8 of a difference, as much as a 3/8 to a 1/2 inch of difference of where these ribs are between each van. So in order to make these universal to go in every single van, we had to make these float. So once you rivet these to the rib, or if you don't have a rivet, a 1/4 inch rivet setter, you can also through bolt this through the rib. Once you do that, then you'll go ahead and tighten these side pieces in, and it clamps it all together and makes it rigid. All right, so the track that's labeled 1, those doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what side of the vehicle they go on. Just put the mountain facing forward. Okay. So we'll set this guy right here. And the last of it. Get your plastic off here. Thanks, Gabe. Set this guy right here. And as you can see, the track fit right over the top of it. The holes where these nuts are set can only fit one way. For instance, if you flip this track around backwards, it will not fit in line with these holes. So you know that you have the forward in the right position if they're all lining up. Okay, so we're just going to take a moment and we're going to fasten these, and we can fasten these tightly into these tracks, and then we'll flip them around and put them up into the ceiling. This is also a moment where you want to be careful not to cross thread. So I always start them by hand. Make sure that they are not going in cross-threaded. Okay, so this is the tool that we're going to use to hold the track up. So you should have 2 of them in each kit. If you're doing multiple kits, hang on to them because you can use more than 2 to set the track. But you're going to be using this, it holds the track up in place. It allows you to set your rivets there nice and tight, and then once you set your rivets, you can pull it down and move to the next rib and set it up nice and tight. They play off of the OEM holes that are in the ribs, so it sets it in the same place every single time. So why don't you come on in and we'll show you exactly how these go in. The track tails slip into these little pockets here, and this this is the OEM wire. I pulled it out of this side so it's a little looser. This slips in behind, and this will slip up. We'll go ahead and set these rivets a little bit later. Come back here and check this out right here. Okay, so once this side is put into the back, your tool, it has these 2 little clips, right? So one side goes into this one edge of the OEM hole, and the other side slips into the OEM hole on the other side, and then you'll pull them together. And as you pull them together, the tool pushes the track up, and you slide your little brake down, and that holds everything up and tight and in place. These now are still floating, right? They can be floating back and forth. So we'll squeeze them forward, punch our holes, rivet them in, and then drive these nice and tight. Okay, so here we go. We're going to slip this one little hook into the one side, rotate this up so the other hook slips in the other side,
And with your palm, shove it up, slip this little guy down, and when you do that, this is now up in place and it's holding it so that you can use both hands to set these 4 rivets or put a through bolt onto either side. Just remember to move the tool as you go and set each rivet. Also, what's good to note is down here, before we set this in, I go and I pull my wires for the lights on either side of the midline here. So I take the tails and I put them over so that we can easily plug into them. Otherwise, you're gonna have to feed them through after we mount this, and there's a little, they're tight to get in there. You can do it. You have to push up on the roof and kind of slip them under. But if you can remember to do it before, it makes life a little easier. Okay, so we're gonna start. We've got our tool that's securing it up. This is a little bit, can move, but that's okay. We're gonna set it up onto the upper side so it's not, just kind of push it up here. Your rivet. Okay, and do that, set the rivet before you drill out the other side. Now the other side is ready to be drilled out.
You can Gabe. Go ahead. I just more bolt on. Yeah, jam it right here then. Oops. Okay. Yes.
I've got band-aids in my car if you want.
So after you get your rivets in, then use your 10 mil ratchet to tighten these bolts up on the side. They have a lock nut on them, or a lock washer on them, so once they're in, they shouldn't back out. You can also use the red Loctite. They are not meant to be removed after this point. They're permanently in there at all times now. Right here. Just suck them up.
Get that? That's, oh yeah, that's great. It's a strong wind blowing in here.
So on the very front one, this is raked down a little bit like this. So we actually, you want to push a little bit of pressure up. You don't want to jam this thing super high up. You're just going to push a little bit of pressure up when you set this first hole.
There we go. You don't have to kind of push it up like this here.
Okay. For the back, this is going to be loose a little bit. You're going to want to push it up. Don't scrape this here. So you don't want that in your way. Again, make sure that you push the wires out of the way. You do not want to be scraping the wires with your drill.
There we go. Cool.
Need some TV time.
Ready? Good. Back here. Okay, so after you do the speed struts, which we just got done doing, these little guys, they actually go on either end of the fan, and in the 144 it's either end of the fan where the fan holes are, or if you're not getting the fan holes, you'll see which ribs they end up on. But the premise is you use this plastic thing to stick into the middle hole, and it's your guide. If you think of this, the mountain being up, the mountain is faced up, and we stick it in the hole here, and it allows a platform for us to slip our little floating nuts on. So we changed to a 3/16 bit, and we're going to punch one hole, rivet it in. You want to grab that one? Nathan's going to be running the rivets on these. And then And then you can film this whole thing here. Once a rib nut is set on both sides, you can then go out and drill the rest of the holes out. But you don't want to drill 2 holes before setting a rib nut. Okay, and now we're going to set these on the rib. This is the rib that is right behind the middle rib, the 0 line rib. And again, we're putting them so that the floating nuts are on the outside of the fan. Right? If you're going to put them this way, you know you're doing it wrong. You're not going to get your drill in there, and the nuts will be on the wrong side. It goes this way. Once you have 2 rivets into these things, you can go ahead and punch the rest of the holes out. Okay, so like I was saying, this one that was cut on the angles, that goes in the very front, right into the center hole, same way as the other ones. We actually won't set our floating nuts into the front. This is primarily to keep the front panel from pushing up through the roof. If you want to set it, you can punch those holes and set it and bolt it right in just like the rest of the panel.
I'm gonna have to bore that guy out a little bit.
Okay, so this is the centerpiece that's going to bridge the track between these 2 tracks. You'll see that the nuts are poking through the back, and so what we need to do is score where they are and put a little bit of an oversized hole so these nuts will be able to slip into this rib. And the way we do that, here's this plastic piece again. This is the guide, and we line that up with the center. The guide the typical guide is going to be about a 1/4 inch longer than this, and so it slips into this hole. But if it does not, this one is an old one, and we just eyeball it with where that hole is, because that's close enough for us to get our mark to tell us where to put our oversized hole. Right now I'm just using one of the rivets, the end of it, to mark and scratch where it is. Okay, so now that those marks are scratched into the ceiling, I use my step bit, and I'll just warn you now, you can do a lot of damage to yourself. Wear eye protection for certain on this process. Large flakes of metal will be pulled off of this thing, and they are hot, so use your eye protection. I'm going to start with about a 1/2 inch hole.
ready. You know, their paint cup and the paint.
Before we actually mount this up there, we will also want to put the paint around there. So we're going to see if this lines up. So they slip nicely into all the holes, and you can tell because everything's laying flat now. So we'll paint it and then go ahead and rivet these tabs up into place, and every bit of the speed strut system will be done. You know, it's not going to set flat until these holes are widened to the right size. So you'll know if you need to widen them more. But I usually start with about a ½ inch, and I typically end up having to widen at least one more. So everything's gooed up nicely. Nice enough for us to set our track. So I'm just putting my palm up on the bottom, and we'll set one at a time until we get at least one in each of these tabs.
This point.
Okay, so the last part is setting these little U-nut clips. These are real simple. You'll notice they kind of have a little volcano, and that's the thread, and that volcano is facing up, just like the mountain on our little anchor point here, and they just slip over that metal and create a little floating nut, and that's a little floating target. So when we put our panels in, again, each van's a little different, so this gives us a nut that we can bolt up into. So we just slip these on the end of each of those little anchor plates that we just riveted in. Again, like I said, I don't set these into the front ones, but you're more than welcome to. We give you 2 extras for the front if you want to do that. All right, now it's time to go eat a bratwurst.